Morning, this is Rich Larius, sorry. Good morning, it's Rich Larius. I'm chairman of the Capital Outlay Committee. Today is September the 9th, and it's at 10 a.m. We're running a little behind schedule because of some technical difficulties. Can we go around the horn and identify ourselves?
Sure, Mark Kelleher,
From,
Finance Committee Representative.
thank you.
Karen Doucette, also from the Finance Committee.
Martha Donovan, Select Board member.
And I'm Rich Larius from the Town Administrator. So that's the call of order. We have some new business, and I'm going to pass it on to our Town Administrator to explain in detail what the dates and the approval process would be.
Well, actually, your new business item is for you folks to potentially approve minutes.
I understand, but the question is that we've had is that this is from 2019.
All right, so you want me to explain the process overall?
Yeah, please.
So the town now has a cadre of board secretaries, which is the official title under the personnel bylaws. The newest board secretary has been assigned to clear out backlog for any committees related of a financial nature, so that's obviously you folks for capital outlay. Generally speaking, and I'd say this in the presence of a member of the Board of Selectmen who's your liaison, traditionally, committees are expected to have an organizational structure of a chair, vice chair, and a clerk, and the clerk would be the person responsible on behalf of the public body, your committee, for crafting these. The dates in question go back to when there was obviously some disruption in administration. And so I'm thrilled that we have a dedicated resource in our pool of board secretaries to help you folks get up to speed on your minutes. The approval of minutes on a parliamentary level is something where the four of you, whether you are participants or not, could recommend the adoption of the minutes because staff is telling you that we believe this is a correct reflection of the materials that were presented at that time. You don't have to be a part of it to accept them. And under law, if you don't accept them, they are still the record of the meeting. So you have two meetings to start out with. You will have many, many more. I think, yeah, as you'll see from my work on the Affordable Housing Trust, for our meeting next week, they have about 18 or 19 sets of minutes to accept.
Joe, is there any way that once I understand with the new process of, from a recording, a person makes the minutes, is there any way for when they make the minutes that those minutes are sent to us?
Yes, so
For review?
the standard operating procedure that we use, again, we as meant to evince both Board of Selectmen, administration, and other committees, is, in a very timely manner, meaning, from this meeting, the recording will be available immediately. That board secretary can avail themselves of that recording, produce a draft, circulate it to the chair, circulate it to the committee, and at your next regular meeting, adopt them.
Very good.
And like I said, that's going forward. So there's a commitment from the town to support capital outlay, to reduce the backlog. But we're hopeful that as you become fully constituted and you meet your obligations under the charter to organize with a chair, vice chair, and clerk, that you would rely upon your clerk to be the primary person to track that.
Okay. Any questions about the process? Okay, I think we can live with it as a startup, and I'm sure once they get through the backlog and we get to present day, present week, we'll be in fine shape, okay?
Rich, quick question. Today's meeting, for example, should one of us take notes and act as a de facto clerk?
Does anybody want to volunteer for that?
Well, is this outside the scope of the town help? Are they going to record this and make minutes, or should?
Yeah, so presently you have board secretary, staff resource available. So if you didn't do the clerk as you're suggesting, it's already covered.
Okay.
going forward, it's a good practice to have. But right now, we've made the investment in that to get it done.
Okay, I will volunteer to take notes.
Okay.
And I work with Dana DeCosta on the Finance Committee. He's pretty refined about
Yes.
what's needed to be in there, because I know when I did notes before for the Finance Committee, they were too expansive. So I will take notes and then cut it back down to what you.
Dana will show you the shortcuts.
Exactly. I mean, there's,
Well, and then if I could, thank you very much, because what we can do is we'll tell staff, continue working on the backlog,
Mhm.
and that the committee has notes and an individual dedicated on a go-forward basis. That'd
Well,
be
what
very,
I'd like
very
is,
helpful.
whoever that person is, if they can talk,
Absolutely.
literally talk.
Yep.
And let that person who's doing it audibly, if that's,
Absolutely. So I'll make sure
let-
that Danielle and Ellen give you the contact information.
let that person know when she gets to the point where, okay, I'm all caught up. Now let's talk, Mark. Okay, so I don't want you to be, building up 3 and 4 meetings, and she hasn't even, she's still 30 away,
yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We'll take care of that as we go along, okay? So, yes,
I'd like to make a motion that we vote to approve and accept the minutes of our meetings from October 15th, 2019, and October 24th, 2019, as presented.
Seconded.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
We're good.
Aye.
4-0. And as a side note, I don't think any of you 3 were here.
That's why it's a little bit leery.
Okay, I remember these meetings, and they were just,
So for what it's worth, I wasn't even there. So,
I was acting town administrator. Okay, so we have that taken care of. So under old business, I'm going to throw this over to Joe. The
Mr.
town-
Chairman, does it help you folks to take B first, to just confirm your meeting schedule?
Yes,
And then if I could, take that opportunity to acknowledge on the record, so as you are aware, the other town administrator representative to this committee, Bob Bosworth, his resignation was accepted by the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, September 6th. I know firsthand from Bob is a friend and a known entity. He does that with a heavy heart, but he expressed in his letter to the board that his work schedule is not going to allow him the flexibility that he thought he had, and in deference to you folks, thought it would be better to give me the opportunity to find someone that may have a more conducive schedule. So I wanted to offer my thanks to Mr. Bosworth for his service and the time that he was here.
we want to thank Bob also. I just want to ask it's sort of clerical, but sort of meaningful. I know the bylaws, the committee is looking at the charter bylaws, and in the charter bylaws, it says that this committee needs 7 people. Another finance committee, 7 or 9,
9, I think.
9 people. In light of the world today, much like the printing of the town meeting, what do you call the book?
Warrants?
The warrants, it can't be done electronically. It has to be sent to a printer. Has anybody said we're like sort of in the 21st century and literally my iPhone could print everything that we have, but unfortunately, it's not allowed? So the question that I have is there any possibility that the number of people per committee be lowered, given the fact that there's a lack of interest in the town? And if you go any lower, nothing will be done. I mean, if it gets to where committees where you have 9, and then you drop to 7, and maybe to 5 or 4, you don't have a quorum. We lose one more person, we don't have a quorum. Has anybody expressed some interest of, let's lower the numbers?
So I was prepared to say yes to the first part of that question where you said, can it happen? And the answer is yes. Relative to this committee and finance, as an example, you are created by reference in the charter. And I just put that out there because charter changes. Presently, there's two ways that we can do it. One of them is through legislative act. The other way is the way that we've traditionally done it. I have no preference either way. But when the town does it without legislative interaction, it is first a vote of town meeting, and if approved, at the next annual, a year later, if it's approved by the voters, the charter change goes in. So that's how you change any reference in the charter to do what you're asking. We then have references, somewhat duplicative but still separate, in the general bylaws, and a bylaw change is similar to a charter change where it has to be town meeting approved. If it's approved by town meeting, it then has to get approved by the Attorney General. So that's only a one-year process, where charter changes are 2 years. So yes, it can be done. To your last question about is there any thought, I turned a moment ago to one of my 5 bosses and said, may I speak to this? And I got the nod of ascension saying yes. The Board of Selectmen is well aware of this issue town-wide. The board, in my opinion, has a very well-established process of a subcommittee known as the Interview Committee. They're very active on the board, so anytime there's someone that has expressed interest, they meet immediately. But the board gets regular updates from my staff on all the vacancies. And so this is a critical issue, and I can share with you that a town that I was in about almost a decade and a half ago, came to the point where they weren't getting any people to serve on committees, so they had to do a massive evaluation of their form of government. So for the town of Harwich, we rely upon committees to provide input, guidance, advice, and information, ultimately to the Board of Selectmen, and then ultimately, in some cases, to town meeting. So we rely upon them, but yes, it's one of the many things we're considering with charter. But right now, when you talk about your committee, finance committee, and some others, you're in the charter, so any changes to that have to go through that 2-year legal process. And as I've said, in Harwich, we tend to duplicate in some instances where there may be a committee formation in the charter, but then it refers you to the bylaws for membership. So both of those elements are in play right now, which makes it incredibly cumbersome to change.
Well,
But none of that prevents change from happening.
I respect your answer. The question is, you can form all the interview committees you want, and you can have your staff talking to people, to as many people as you want. If nobody says yes, it doesn't help the situation.
Right, we lose a critical component in our charter.
Exactly. So all I'm saying is there a concurrent effort to look at other ways to get people? I mean,
Well,
to lower the
Yeah,
standard.
the short answer is always.
Okay.
To your point, to your opening comment about bylaw charter review, that is one of the main central items we're looking at. The streamlining and making the town meeting warrant process more efficient.
What's the Band-Aid situation should this committee or the finance committee lose a quorum, which means we can't meet, we can't do anything, and we can't get anyone? So what do?
It depends.
Is there a legal, is there a position?
I'm not aware of one directly, other than just knowledge that I've gleaned over my years in municipal government. The short answer is, whenever there's the intention and the effort to honor the requirements, but through acts of God or otherwise, you can't complete it, the business of the town must go forward. So when you talk about you folks for capital outlay, the good news is the capital outlay plan is something that I must develop. If there is no capital outlay committee, I still have to develop that. The charter requires me to develop a budget. So if we don't have those other entities, we don't shut down as a town, but we're not operating in the way that we've envisioned.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I just had the inspiration yesterday or the day before, because I've been trying to stop in at all the committees I'm liaison for, that we, I'm sorry.
Sorry, only for the benefit of the board secretary that's not here.
Sorry. Mary Anderson, I just think we should start publishing each week in our agenda, just a list. The following committees have vacancies, and if you're interested, please. We say it occasionally, but I think if it was in print and it was in there regularly, it might help.
Good idea.
It's a great idea, and also, I would also suggest, there's a Latin phrase that I had in high school, but I can't pronounce it right now, but all I know is repetition is the mother of learning. And in that, the effort from the Board of Selectmen at each meeting to have a sentence in your agenda to announce that we haven't gotten any. Also, I don't see anything wrong with publishing an article in the Chronicle.
Everybody reads that.
Everybody reads it back, especially where, I noticed yesterday, the last page, always about the airport, and it's 17 letters, everyone's from Chatham,
Yeah.
okay? There's not one person from Orleans or Harwich. You get maybe somebody from West Harwich, saying Captain's Row needs another house. But I think if we have an article or someone would write from the town stating that participation is low and that we'd really like more participation, people don't know, if people don't come to town hall, my wife doesn't come to town hall, she thought I was gonna play golf, I'm here. The issue is, there's a lot of people who don't know that these meetings take place. They don't go to town meeting. They don't know what the Board of Selectmen is. I live on a street with 12 homes. I could tell you one of the homes, mine, is the only active participation in Harwich. So all I'm saying is that a lot of people get the Chronicle. I wouldn't say the Cape Cod Times, because that's spread out too far. But the Chronicle is the perfect place that if somebody from the town of Harwich, an employee, or you guys pay lawyers, or the Board of Selectmen have somebody, to write an article that we're on a constant search for people to participate on a volunteer basis to go on. So,
Yeah, I'll say, I came from off Cape, and it was a city with a mayor. And when I came down here and sort of got active with the sewer, I didn't realize how much the town relies on volunteers, which is why I volunteered, because,
Yeah.
it wasn't a huge commitment, and I'm learning something.
okay, so we'll follow up on that. Mary, maybe,
I like your idea.
thank you. Joe, do you want to explain or go into
I
this?
cer- I
Or what's your
certainly do.
what is your next?
Well, again, your meeting schedule, I understand that,
Yeah, while you were outside, we covered something, and this will speed up for you. We are good for September the 23rd, 2 weeks from today, September the 30th, and October 21st. So we have 4 meetings.
23rd and 30th of September,
Right?
and then, were there 2 dates in October?
The 7th and the 14th weren't good.
20,
So by inference, would it be
the 21st.
And the 28th, too?
Yeah, the 28th.
Yeah.
Thank you, yep,
Yeah.
thank you.
Now, those are subject, should we do the 23rd and the 30th, to start doubling up, should we have to.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay?
Great,
Because
thank
we know people are here for that Friday. The assumption is they are from Thursday to Monday also,
Excellent.
backwards.
So I'm prepared to jump on that information and tell you that what you have in front of you in hard copy, and what I'll be referring to in my electronic copy, is the draft, the first official draft of the capital outlay plan for fiscal years 2024 through 2028. Based on the meeting schedule that you folks have just confirmed for me, I will be reaching back out to department heads and informing them and developing a schedule based on those calendars. And we will come back to you for rigorous questioning and discussion on their items. What you can see in front of you is, well, first I'm going to tell you I'm colorblind. I assumed those to be yellow highlights.
They
Yes.
are, Yeah.
Perfect. So, first, the highlights, before I get to the highlighted text. I want to draw your attention right to the bottom line. So you can see for fiscal year '24, in the draft, we are looking at an annual request of $26,676,588. That number is going to be increased in a moment. What was taken out of that is if you're looking at that bottom line, if you go draw your eye up a few levels to the wastewater department, the East Harwich collection system expansion. When you look at previous year's reports, the number that was in there was 30 million. I took it out pending information from the wastewater superintendent. That number is going to be restored, and it's higher. Surprise, surprise.
Higher than zero.
Correct, higher than 30 million.
Oh.
And so, before I give that number, I also want to draw your attention, though, to the parenthetical notes below. That 26.6 million is predicated on water and wastewater projects separate from the one I just mentioned. We're going to add that in a moment. But if you set those aside, because of the big nature of it, you're taking out $21.7 million. I know we're gonna get into ample discussion on facilities maintenance. And if you back out what we're doing for our physical plant, and for me, I define physical plant as buildings and grounds. That knocks off almost 2.5 million. So the capital plan for fiscal year '24, separate from infrastructure projects and separate from facilities maintenance, is coming in around 2.4 million. Now, the other caveat on that is you can see that there is a placeholder in there under information technologies. I'm thrilled to tell you that on Tuesday, September 6th, our Director of Information Technology started, Sarah Eaton. She is a longtime IT person from Orleans, and with all due respect to my colleague John Kelly in Orleans, I was thrilled to steal her. Sarah is making an immediate and positive response. I've had several meetings with her this week, and I've given her the heads up that I will be relying upon her and her expertise to guide me on any capital expenditures she thinks technology should ask for in this plan. There may not be any for fiscal year '24, but I want her to have the right and ability, as all of our other colleagues do. So that is one item that may change. That will happen sooner rather than later, and certainly should have information for you no later than your next meeting on September 23rd. So with that, Mr. Chairman, what I'm prepared to do is to give you some insights on any of the highlighted items, not only for fiscal year '24, but any highlighted items that you see, including talking about fiscal year 2028, which at present only shows, for all departments listed, a capital outlay of 4.8 million with a lot of caveats. The wastewater superintendent has confirmed for me that with all that he has going on, he is still trying to figure out what projects, if any, he would be looking to do in fiscal years '27 and '28. So very much a preliminary draft document in its earliest stages, but from my perspective, ample information from which we can start discussing.
Let me ask a question first. Can we date this 9/9? So this is in other words, if we,
Yes, yep, thank you, yep.
Okay.
This is the 9/9/22 version.
is there a number that we can put in where the 30 million was, the zero is?
Yes,
Do you want to give us that number?
$47 million.
Flat?
Yep, $47 million up from 30 million. And I can give you some preliminary information on that that I received from, water, wastewater superintendent.
Just so, is it 47 million for the East Water Collection System expense?
Correct. This is the East Harwich Collection System expansion, fiscal year '24 only, $47 million.
So can I ask a question?
Surely.
Can you help us, with the, sort of the rule that we're only supposed to add 2028, not change anything in the first 4 years?
I can absolutely answer that.
How does this relate to
So
what
the
we
question came up,
approved?
sorry to interrupt, but I'm
Yeah.
so eager to answer it. The question came up to bylaw charter review. Given that you folks made the change, how are you going to treat this? And the general response was, we meant first to do no harm. And so I said, great, because we're gonna operate and things are gonna change.
Right.
Now, we'll still need to rely upon both town council, who is great in directing, I'm gonna use that word specifically, me, the board, and others on the motions to be made at town meeting. We'd also have to rely upon his honor, the moderator, as to what he thinks is the appropriate course of action. That is to say, it may still require that 2/3 majority of some level at the town meeting next May, but we're no longer prevented from revising.
So for now, our role is to look at it bottoms up for all the years, get to where we need to get to, and let the moderator and the select board and everybody else figure out how they have to present it at town meeting. We don't need to go
How
back.
they have to present it with regard to the motion to be made, correct?
Right, we shouldn't be going back and ticking and tying to what was there last year approved and see the differences and questioning those
Well,
differences.
if you do, that's the preponderance of many of those highlights.
Oh, okay,
I'm prepared
okay.
to tell you what it was last year and what the department heads are saying it is now. And again, remember that obviously they're impacted by supply chain issues, they're relying upon the best industry information. So it's not surprising, I don't think, to any of us that we've seen these changes.
But this
But
facility maintenance is like a whole new category. We didn't see that last year.
We did to some element, I'll be able to explain
Okay,
that once we
okay,
get to it.
okay.
But I took from the chair that you may want to talk about the 47 million first, so I do have more information to offer. On that
Well,
one.
I was sort of shortening the effort here. I am personally more concerned from the originator of these numbers and question, I mean, we're gonna be spending a lot of time with the person that actually authored facilities maintenance, okay? And I think, I'm opening up to you, but I don't need to hear Joe's explanation of each number when I'm gonna hear it again from the author who's living by it.
Sure.
My question to the committee is there anything standing out here where if we didn't go through each line, is there something very obvious that you'd like to talk about? And that's to shorten the pain that we're gonna go, the pain that we are actually gonna go through. So I open that to you. I know there's there's much interest in a couple of these line items.
I would say if there's something that shows highlighted and it's zero, that might be worth,
Oh, sure, absolutely.
I mean, I agree that we're gonna go in depth in other stuff, but you've highlighted a bunch of zeros, so,
Well, there's zero in that year, but they're not in, he's like,
no, but he skipped zeros in other places, so some zeros are highlighted, some aren't, and I'm curious what
you know
those-
you did that, Joe.
Correct, yep. Yes, there was.
Like Allen,
there was
like
an-
Allen Harbor Jetty,
Yeah.
2
So-
zero, 1.5 zeros. Then zero, then no yellow, 2 million, 0.
So if I could go from the top, first of all, actually the zero regarding the Cranberry Valley Golf Course, that was just to indicate that there was, my understanding is there was nothing from before, and there's nothing in present. That has been confirmed. Then continuing down, was there a question?
No, that's helpful. There's one for the community center
So
right
then,
above
Mr.
it.
Chairman, to your point, a harbor master, Allen Harbor Jetty, the original plan called for $2 million for engineering owner's project manager, and construction. The harbor master has indicated that he's moving that from fiscal year '24 to fiscal year '27 to accurately reflect where we're at with the design of that construction. So the number hasn't changed, the date has moved, and I confirmed with the harbor master yesterday that the 2 million includes engineering beyond design, owner's project manager, and construction costs. So that's where that zero comes into.
So then, Joe, the other zeros, say on that particular example, that are not highlighted, those are confirmed also?
Those were zeros before, they remain zeros, correct.
And so if there's a line, let me, just as an ADA compliance on facilities maintenance, does that mean none of that line's confirmed, or that it is confirmed and there was no changes?
So the way I would read that line, so you said facilities maintenance,
The last one. on
ADA
it, yeah.
compliance requirements. So fiscal year 2024, that number is a carryover. That number was in the plan and remains at that level. There is no other project contemplated
At this
for the
point.
remainder of the plan at this time.
Okay, so these numbers are essentially all confirmed, except for what you said was IT, and you said there was 2 department heads that hadn't chimed in?
So yes, IT is the first one, Sarah Eaton. The other one, Jack Mee, has not even started yet as our building commissioner. Traditionally, building department doesn't have anything. However, in an abundance to treat everybody fairly and the same, I want to give them the opportunity to
Okay.
evaluate that. Now, Jack does not start with us until early October. Again, I'm not anticipating anything from building, but to be fair to him as our new colleague, I want to give him the same opportunities. And again, as I've said, it's not necessarily necessary that information technologies will have anything for capital in fiscal year '24. And I only say that because you may recall that we're relying upon ARPA funds
Yep.
for some of the bigger projects that are already underway.
All right, this is great, yep.
Tying this sheet into the calendar of events that planning, can we ask so that we can hit the big facilities maintenance first? Can we have them come in on the 23rd?
Certainly. That would be my
That work with you guys?
preference as well.
Yes.
Have that one knocked out. We have a main concern within those expenditures, those capital. Yes?
Rich, just one question. That's great to bring facilities in on that. I'm just wondering, we've had a tour of the west side. I'm asking your opinion on this. We're gonna get some figures. Would it be helpful to have a tour of the east side?
Well-
A lot of the
You're talking about
expenditures may
Sisson
be.
Road.
And we can do that, but I think right now, you can see where their efforts have been and where they're, individually trying to do their job. I don't want to take them away. I think if we have questions, there's, a dozen or 10 locations we may question.
Okay.
I know 204 Sisson is, at least in the Finance Committee's mind. As I've said, it's part of a bigger picture. And my concern is that if we have direct questions like, how do you get to 1.5 first year? And we saw the west side. Is the east side that much more critical? Or tell me what's the critical part that we haven't seen? And if so, can you carve us out 30 minutes so we can come over and visit? It's not a meeting, we don't have to worry about it. If it's a visit, we're good.
May I speak to that point directly?
Please.
Because I think it's a great question and a great mindset. You have your regular meeting schedule on Fridays. Site visits, as we know, if handled properly, are not subject to the open meeting law. So it can be a formal process or an informal process. The caveat always remains that when you do a site visit, you don't engage in anything that could be construed as deliberation. However, as we did the last time, you may want to do a site visit and then come right into your meeting, if it's fresh that way. But picking up on what you said, Mr. Chairman, you and your predecessor committees used to do in years past, I think site visits are fantastic. And to the point, we did see the west wing, we haven't seen the east wing.
Right.
So staff, stand ready to support that, and however the committee wants to do that.
Yeah, we may want to ask Sean, you've got these numbers here, 4 million, or two and change. We've asked Sean to give us some numbers. He's almost at 2.5 million. What was his thought process to get there?
Yeah, I'd like to wait until we go through the first review, and then if we think we need it, we schedule a
Yeah.
walkthrough. But I have a question, a process question. So let's say we put facilities maintenance, like, to cover the first session. Will we get the spreadsheets or something that's behind these numbers
No.
prior? Can I finish my question? Prior to the meeting starting? Like, well,
Yes,
You want the request
Well,
form.
no,
if I
no,
may?
nope, I don't want the request form. I want,
Oh, I was hoping you did, meaning we're
Well,
prepared
if-
to share all of the applications, all of the ancillary material, everything that went into this plan, you will get
That's
long
perfect.
before your meeting on the 23rd.
that's perfect. I'm more, I'd love to see the ancillary stuff, because I feel like that's where the detail's gonna be.
Yep.
But yeah, the.
Yeah,
the
whatever
ta-
we
Top
have.
page, sure. I would love that
Whatever we
ahead of
have,
time
you
to be
folks
able
will
to,
get.
then we can prepare questions in a way that's, why you have that look?
I have it, well, I'm born with it, but the fact is, the information that generated those numbers are coming from a completed request form, not from paperwork going back 10 years, or more paperwork.
I didn't ask for that. I asked for the,
I didn't take it that way.
I asked for the request form.
Right.
And whatever information, I'm
So
assuming,
if I may, some department heads did the forms as directed,
yeah,
because we have to have that. And it becomes public anyway, because you're going to rely upon it.
Yeah.
So we offer that up. Some departments also added, in addition to their form, more information. If I have it, you get it.
So this was the form, I know there've been changes to the
Yeah, it's
form
better,
last
but
year.
correct. Yep.
But this is the, it's a page or two.
no, I realize that. We
Okay.
saw that last time we met.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very simple question. Will we get that and any ancillary information you guys
Yes.
have that help us understand what's behind the 1.5 million as an
Yes, and
example?
even though I'm trying to go for sainthood, the reason on that is because it's public. Absolutely.
And so that, in prepping for this meeting, because this is going to get a really detailed meeting, you know, if we start down from the top to the 11 facilities or whatever's on there,
Right.
it's going to be a lot of information. I'd like to review and prepare questions so that we can make it more.
One of the things I didn't do for today was to bring up my budget book, which it is 234 days until annual town meeting. Thank you, Joe. And despite that, I already have a big binder going. That binder's only gonna get bigger with more information.
That's awesome. That's-
So
yeah,
that is the intent always.
Perfect, thank
And
you.
if you folks want binders, let me know. I'll work with staff. We'll find a budget to hit for that expense, but, yeah, there's gonna be ample paperwork for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna, I'd love to try and keep track of that. A binder wouldn't hurt.
And can,
Go ahead.
so I think last time we met, you said that whatever the department heads put forward would be in here. There were no negotiations, if you will, between you and the department heads before the numbers went in here.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Correct. Yep. And if I can build off of my simple answer and make it more complex, remember that the other thing we're not talking about yet, which I feel is a primary responsibility of me to start with, is if we are contemplating these purchases, how are we going to pay for it?
Right.
And so Anne Marie Ellis, our finance director, will become a part of this process. She's doing God's work right now, and I'd rather have her do that today. But we are constantly evaluating, if we do these things, how are we going to pay for them? And I also want to offer, as sort of a, I'm going to try and find whatever camera I may be on, to say this publicly for the first time. Anne Marie and I are contemplating any and all manner of funding. And that is to say, I have an obligation to update the board later this month on the overall financial assessment. And again, it's a little bit early, because we're not going to have the full picture on revenue for the first quarter of this year, but still enough information has come into me for me to start formulating certainly thoughts and strategies. But to give the Board of Selectmen a heads up that we may need to rely upon Proposition 2.5 overrides or debt exclusions to fund them, and that's a very significant policy decision that has to come from the Board of Selectmen first, because boards of selectmen in years past have directed myself and predecessor administrators, essentially, first, reduce or eliminate the use of overrides. So that's a policy thing that we might have to test this year. Point is, no negotiations have or will take place. I don't see that as what's supposed to be the process. And everything is on the table, and every funding source is gonna be evaluated going forward. And I just want to put a final point on that. I know Selectman Anderson and I've thanked her, I'm gonna do it on camera. The selectmen are very engaged, and it's helpful for me. And we have constant conversations, me individually and them as a board, on how we do things. And, you know, we're reaching the point where, you know, we're doing this early enough that there's a lot of big stuff going on out there, but we're still in a mindset and a time frame where there's also funds available now that were never available before and may never be available again. And so we really want to make sure that we're examining any and all options. Everything's on the table. Debt exclusions, overrides, capital inclusions, all of that, those for me become binding questions. So years past, we may have relied upon non-binding questions. I'm not a fan of that. They're not binding. A binding question is, shall we do this project? And if so, shall we exclude it, include it, override it, whatever? And for me, that's the best way to give notice to the general public and the voting public that they're going to have an input
I
of a
have,
binding nature.
I just have a question for the Finance Committee members. For months, the Finance Committee has chosen 204 Sisson Road as a topic to investigate. Is that agreeable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, on behalf of the residents. I mean, it was a resident petition, so it wasn't, it came to us as well.
Okay. Is there, I mean, I've gone through this process enough to know that we're going to spend a lot of time on a lot of things. Is there any good reason why Sean couldn't go to your meeting and give you the answers? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, point to Joe.
Yes. Okay. Right. So Sean is a direct, sorry, I'm gonna correct that. The facilities manager
Yeah,
is a direct report of the Director of Public Works, who is a direct report of the town administrator.
right.
And so if I can talk about last night's meeting, Finance Committee Chairman Hughes was clear about a process that he would want his members to go through regarding staff. So, you know, when we're talking about Finance Committee, it's an evening, it's outside of their standard job requirements, tour of duty, I think is the better way to say it. I always need to manage the staff and want to honor any and all requests. So I would never say that, yep, go have a facilities manager talk to you, because it circumvents standard operating procedure. And if there's a conversation at FinCom and it was not a conversation at staff level, there's a disconnect right there. So what I'm trying to say is, we will work the process with staff as appropriate, but staff at every level has conveyed to me over the years that it's disruptive for them to have serial conversations with board members or Outlay committee members or FinCom members while they're trying to meet their required obligation of their boss.
Okay. So we'll address the issue in this environment, this committee.
Correct.
Okay.
But I would want to underscore that from the standpoint of transparency and inclusivity, it is my directive, it is a directive of my bosses. We, staff, are trying to make all of this as open and public and recorded as possible. My overall riding ethic that's not the right word, but bear with me, is to make sure that the Board of Selectmen first can make thoughtful and informed decisions and then recommend the same to to Finance Committee and to town meeting, and have those folks be able to do the same.
Okay.
So the overall, overriding ethic, there we go, is for everyone that is in a decision-making role to be able to make informed decisions.
Is there any way, Karen, for you, now that you see some of the numbers, to prepare sort of a worksheet or a question sheet prior to us meeting with Sean?
If we get the information that we talked about earlier, sure.
So if you can get,
I believe we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I'm
well,
fine
I'm
with
trying to
that.
circumvent a 5-hour meeting.
Amen.
Okay, so what I want to do is know what's in Karen's mind that she wants to question, and if it depends on the information that you've gained, given to her, and we can give her interests over to Sean, it sort of shortens what we have to meet about. He'll be prepared to answer a question, God, how come you have 2 toilets in this room? I'm just picking that.
Sure.
Okay, so can that be done?
Yeah, that's what we talked about a little while ago, yeah.
Well,
Sure.
no, the question is for you to prepare.
It's for all of us to prepare, just so everybody knows. And it's not just Sean, it's every single person that's coming. So that's a big topic, but Dan Pelletier's gonna have some questions, I'm sure. So my point being is, that's a process for this whole committee, with you guys, obviously. For every department head that's requesting sizable chunks of money, we're gonna wanna know what's behind the number. That's
And
all.
we're going to question them, what's behind the number. And normally, the information that we get is the filled-out form, which generates that number.
Yeah.
And you want deeper, I understand that, you want the deeper.
I just want whatever they submitted to Joe to support the number, that's
Okay.
all.
Yep.
I think we all do. We're all shaking our heads, so it's about, again, this isn't about me.
And if anything gets created in the meantime, it would be updated, meaning those binders are dynamic binders. They're gonna change over time.
Yeah,
for
and that,
sure.
I'm fully on board with that. I mean, this is preliminary, this is September, right? Early September, for that matter.
Right.
So I get that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. I'm just trying to shorten the person who's presenting it for what they need to have to us. And if that is different than what it is in the past, we have to let that person know.
Yeah, I would say, and to be clear, there's a couple of topics on here, not just Sisson Road, but like I said, wastewater. There are gonna be extended sessions, so I don't think we can lock those into 20 minutes and then shut that down. We can't do that. We have to be able to get through the whole discussion. Some of them are gonna go much shorter, quicker than 20 minutes, so hopefully it'll even out eventually, but let's be clear, like, I really hope we don't intend to shut things down without getting all the answers. If an extended session's needed, we need that time.
We'll take it up if it happens.
Okay.
Put it that way.
Yeah, I'm just sharing my,
What I want to do is prepare the presenter that it's going to be different than what they've done in the past,
okay.
okay? They come in normally 20 minutes, 25 minutes, that's it. The longer guys get a half hour, like Harbor Master, like Sean. So they, in their mind, are not going to be prepared to sit with us for 3 hours to go over their list.
Oh, I understand, and Joe should prep them. I mean, I think
Correct,
there's some.
that's what I
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, there should be,
That's
there's
what I
some,
made reference before. It's helpful that you're going to get into this in earnest on September 23rd, because it gives me prep time ahead of that to say, okay, department heads, I did a
And
preliminary
I think the first one,
presentation.
facilities maintenance is probably the beta test to find out if what we're discussing now is going to work, or how do we tweak what we ask for.
yeah, and,
I mean, we're asking them to do something that may be beyond their 8-hour job. So,
Yeah, I look at capital plan as part of their 8-hour job. so
I don't.
that's-
So do I.
I don't.
I-
Administratively, we can accomplish anything with advance notice.
Yeah, and that's what I want
Yep.
to give your guys, advance, like the harbor master and whoever. We don't have to prepare the community center. We don't have to prepare the library for something like that. But the ones that we need to go in depth for, just let them know that
Yeah,
be prepared.
for sure.
Okay.
But the facility maintenance, we're gonna hear from Sean, though, not the individual.
No. Sean?
And if I may, correct, that's why I've updated the form to reflect that.
Okay.
And if I could just for a moment say, it's also why I have those notes at the bottom, that it's helpful for me, and I believe it's helpful for my colleague Anne Marie, that we look at this and say, okay, like I said, we've got major infrastructure projects like water and wastewater. We have ongoing needs for buildings and grounds, physical plant. What's the rest? And so, the other thing I had in mind was, well, let's go down to it if I could very quickly. Under facilities maintenance, and this is the other thing I wanted to do, I realized that, we talk about addresses and building names and everything else, so I've tried to do both, where, letting people know where we're talking about
That's great.
and what we can generally call it. So if you look at Brooks Free Library, fiscal year 2028, bless you. Fiscal year 2028, you can see there's an ad there, or not an ad because it's the new year, but $590,000. Very quickly, that's for 2 major air handling units in that library. It is not the purpose of the library director, who is an exceptional employee at Library Sciences, to explain to me the need for a dual and air handling, yada, yada, yada. Additionally, if, you to continue to use the example of library, if they had other projects, I didn't want anyone, especially me, to look at it and say, well, wait a second. You get 600 grand for an air handling system, and you get 75 grand for books. Well, which do you want? That's an unfair question to that department head. So for me, facilities maintenance is about physical plant, regardless of what program it impacts upon.
Right.
And by the way, to talk about documents, I'm creating a more in-depth document on physical plant that I'm absolutely gonna share with you folks and the board and finance committee. So that's the intent there.
Because the question I had was last year when the head of the library came, she said she's kind of reviewing how the library works, post-pandemic, what
Right.
practices could
Yep.
they incorporate, how they might change things, because they do need to do some layout sort of things at some point.
Right.
So that, I get that, that's different, her vision for where she's headed.
And that line item is on there under facilities maintenance.
Oh, it
So we
is.
still capture what she talked about.
Okay.
But it's related to physical plant.
Oh, right, because
Yep.
she's gonna change the layout potentially.
Exactly.
Of the,
Yep.
of the
Let me
building.
add a nota bene on this one, okay?
Yes.
The thing is that 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, there was no Sean, okay? And they went out and found a Sean, okay? All these were, as you said, by department.
Right.
And this is where, in the library, our librarian actually became a master electrician, okay?
Right.
And they actually changed everything in the library, and she headed it. Made no sense, made absolutely no sense.
Right.
Where she had to come and ask somebody from whatever department, what kind of light bulb should I use? Well, you're running the system, you should know. How do you read a book, 40 watts or 75 watts?
Yeah.
So that's where this has been driven to Sean, and you hit it on the nose.
Okay.
You hit it.
But he'll be able to say, this is for a reconfiguration based on what the library
Right.
team wants versus.
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
He's given the application what has to be done.
This is what he's recommending in support of that program or department need. Correct.
If I-
And if I could very quickly,
Yep.
because you use the phrase "make sense," what I'm hoping overall is that there's a logic that I'm trying to apply here that comes through, and, you know, there's a methodology to it. But as we go through the process, if there's things you think that I can present it in a better way, I'm open to any and all suggestions. But I am trying to make it all make sense as it
Right.
goes.
Let me give you one last. The firehouse on Sisson Road was built and an elevator was put in. They never budgeted for the maintenance of the elevator. And the fire chief had to oil the elevator, okay? That was part of his job. And when
Come a
it
long
came
way,
for
baby.
replacement, the fire chief had to decide, well, I'm tired of, it took 2 gallons today, So that's where it was a prime example of where you needed facilities maintenance.
Got-
Okay.
Can I just note one thing on the schedule? If you look at the transfer station, there
Sorry,
isn't,
where are you looking?
under facilities maintenance, about halfway down the transfer station,
Uh-huh.
there isn't a total over in the 5-year.
Oh, sorry, thank you. There's also not the zeros in between, so thank you, I'll update all that.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Joe, just one quick question, you could check with the harbor master. He is, on the Wixon Landing improvements, he has mentioned a different figure to me in just talking. So maybe just confirm that figure, 30,000?
So I did actually, I called him on a couple of questions yesterday, and what you'll see on his form is he refers to that as supplemental, and so I think the number he's using is existing plus this supplemental.
Okay, from the prior town meeting, they
Correct.
approved a certain amount plus the
Correct,
addition.
because the other
Okay.
part of it is, when you look at that and you say, well, wait a second, it's 30 grand, and it's 30 grand for 5 years, that's not 50,000. And again, I'm applying the mindset of that 30,000 is added to an existing appropriation.
Okay.
The total project exceeds the 50,000, that's why it's on capital.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So if I, can I ask hopefully a quick question? So in that train of thought, Joe, if I look at, my only reference could be the capital outlay plan that we had in the warrant book. I think that we just decided that was the sort of master we should use for the prior year. Like, I don't see Wixon Landing, do I see that on there? I don't see it on the last one, so
Oh, sorry, right, that would be a highlight. And if I remember correctly, on his form, so I don't know that it's in the old form,
Herring.
but when I re-engineered the form, the first question is, was whatever you're asking for on a previous plan, yes or no? So that was for me to be able to, and I'm still going through it, segregate, this is a carryover, here's new stuff, because we need to contemplate, is that a 2/3 motion? Whatever the case may be. But the 30,000 for Wixon Landing improvements is a new add to the plan.
And Herring River and Wixon are two different things. Herring River is
be-
down near Weather
So
Deck.
if Wixon's, that's my first, I'm just trying to understand. So if Wixon's a new ad, then 30K, it's under the 50K limit, so,
It's a new add to the plan. It is not a new project, and the total value of the project is the 30 grand plus the prior years.
okay. And so this just suggests that we didn't spend it, we're not spending anything this year from a capital standpoint on this project, because it wasn't on the plan that we approved in May.
So I don't know what you mean when you say spend, only because there may have been so on this one, this is better for the harbor master to speak to?
Yeah,
To
and
Mark's
I'll do,
question-
and that's how I'll prepare my questions,
Right.
because what I'd want to know is, just as an example, like this one, we didn't ask for any capital for FY '23 for Wixon. And so even if this is part of an ongoing project, it means that money was approved in prior years.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep.
Yep. It's a little complicated, but I'm just trying to,
It'll
help us prepare our questions, I
Because
think.
remember, for me, as however much I've been involved, I'm technically relatively new to the town. It's been less,
that's getting a little old, Joe.
yeah. Well, no, my point is, the
I'm
board
kidding.
knows this. I didn't know things
No, I
that were
understand.
done in 18 or 19 that we're now adding on to.
It's a lot of details, yeah.
Right. But noted, it's getting old.
Okay, so as literally work items, we don't have any, but Joe does. to get us some background material.
And if I could just confirm, I know we have facilities maintenance, and based on what you've said, I would argue that that's enough to fill a meeting?
Yeah,
Gotcha,
Okay.
yeah, that's fine.
at least.
Um,
And everyone said yes to a binder?
I would love one.
All right,
I don't want to buy.
okay.
I'll take a binder.
Yes, yes, no?
I'm all set.
All right.
The binder is like,
Yes,
It will become such.
yes.
I would love it.
Have I
We
shown
get
you
a
my
lot
binder
going.
collection?
no.
They are backbreaking.
All right, maybe I'll borrow
And
Karen's.
well, it avoids this.
She's the binder person. If she wants
It
to buy.
avoids this, and this is, we're just getting started, so
Karen can be the
eventually,
liaison to administration on binders.
eventually I'm
How's that?
gonna have so
Okay.
many notes, I'm not gonna know where they are.
Well, let me,
Make extra copies for me.
be prepared, and I think we need to put this in the back of our mind. Be prepared that after the presentation and they leave, we may take a vote. Now, that vote's subject to change later, but
Sure.
for each item that he has, we have to vote on. So we either vote the yes or the NPR and,
Well, I would think in the short term, what you're saying is that you're affirming that the request is gonna continue forward. You may suggest a reduction, an increase, whatever. But for me, the ultimate output for this is you and I presenting the plan plan and budget, the two elements of that, to the finance committee and the board of selectmen meeting jointly in December.
true, but
whatever
we
votes
vote,
you-
we vote
Correct,
past 15 years.
right,
We vote on the presentation's
yes.
money. In
Yep.
other words, what they've asked for, we take a vote. So all I'm saying is, be prepared that after each committee makes the presentation, we may be able to take a vote, which is subject to change, but we may be able to take a vote so that he has all approvals, and that when we go to the Board of Selectmen with the Finance Committee, these have been approved if, and the big caveat, if financing is available, and what type of financing is available. This has been approved. It may be like, we may turn down the fire department's vehicle numbers. And we get into agreement that that's the change, and that's the vote. The vote is, or the other one is postpone, what's the three?
Post-employment benefits? Is that-
No,
No, no.
are you saying,
The vote, the type of votes you can give.
well, for you folks, it's straight up parliamentary procedure. You can move to accept as presented.
Right.
You can move to vote it as a different level, or you can move to not have it included.
Yeah, but we use different terms, but that's okay. Yeah, there's
So indefinite
there's an
postpone-
acronym,
So the acronym that I'm aware of emanates from the finance committee. It's the
Oh, I remember that.
no recommend, MTPP,
yeah,
That
maybe
thing.
we can find out, that I think there's three ways to vote. The negative is,
as a
it's almost a
parliamentarian, I will
post,
tell you, there's any number of ways you can vote.
well, what, historically from here,
Yep,
there's either you agree to it, or you can't say no, it's a postponement of sorts, and that's what I'm talking about. So there's actually, you come up with either of two recommendations. One is to accept, yes. The other one is
to not recommend?
to not recommend or to postpone. It's some term, it's three letters, it's an acronym.
Maybe we
Okay.
just take
We'll
it as an
figure it out.
action and get clear on that. I wanna make sure to, yeah, whatever it is, we can agree.
Again, for me, looking at the end of the road, so to speak, there is an overall, this is the capital outlay plan for fiscal years 2024 through 28, and it will evidence itself in fiscal year 24 for articles related to.
Mark, do you talk to Costa, DeCosta?
I will, I do talk to him if I need to, yeah.
Ask him, what
Oh,
are
for
the,
that terminology?
yeah, what's, he,
I talked to John Shorey, I'll find.
no,
out.
no.
Okay, I'll
Costa,
talk to Dana.
DeCosta.
Okay,
I don't want John Juries.
All right, but I remember the term.
Historically, Dana has it ad infinitum, and he knows it backwards and forwards.
All right, the
And what are
terms
the
that-
parameters? What are the terms to accept, postpone, or say no
I will find out. And I'll
to
send
the presenter's numbers or,
Yeah, we should be able to dig that up based on what you've done over the past 15 years.
yeah, you want to go back and find, but one phone call to
Okay.
the encyclopedia, you don't have to
Accept,
do anything.
postpone, and what was the third one?
One is to postpone.
Postpone?
One is to say no, one is to say yes.
Okay.
And I think you can't say no, it's called some type of postponement.
I'll call Dana.
And Dana knows it inside and out.
Okay, will do. Quick question, in terms of binders, we'll get a binder from the finance director like we got from Carol Capola last year, will we not?
Had the budget in it.
That was really good, you know?
Sure, I can't commit to that yet,
Yeah,
just because Anne Marie
okay.
and I haven't talked about it. And I will tell you that I'm hopeful going forward. As I explained in your meeting on Thursday, I will be presenting next week as it relates to special town meeting, but as the finance committee moves forward, I'd be relying upon my colleague, Anne Marie, to be the primary staff presence there.
Right.
So as you go forward, those are the kind of things you certainly want to make available. I do just want to put out there, though, you know, I would hope that she be given the opportunity to offer the Anne Marie touch where Carol was able to give the Carol touch. Having said that, I never want to lose a level of information that we've always been able to provide.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
And just as an aside, Mary, it was a pleasure having you. And if you can, I know you represent a number of committees, but should anything come up in terms of the capital expenses and capital outlay committee, if you can express our concerns, interests, and non-interests to your colleagues, we would appreciate it. I think it's very difficult for us one-on-one to speak to them when we in fact have a strong voice within yourself.
You have my cell phone, right, Rich?
Don't tell them, yeah, I do.
It's one procedural item, just for, show you folks, as you said before, the document, this document that you have in front of you today is going to be referred to as the September 9th, 2022 version. But I want to just emphasize that, because I'll update it based on your discussions today and redistribute to you folks and keep it forward, going forward. So I just want to emphasize that on facilities maintenance, the line relative to transfer station, so that formula was added. The number that's going to be, or that is in there based on that, is $702,300. So you'll see that when I share the September 9th version. And obviously, as you go all the way down, the East Harwich Collection System expansion,
Yeah.
that zero has been replaced with a number of $47 million. And the effect of that then is your bottom line numbers. The annual total for fiscal year 2024 would now read $73,676,588. And the exclusions would read, the excluding water and wastewater projects would read a negative of $68,775,000. Excuse me. The facilities maintenance number does not change, and the net total does not change.
I'm glad I live in East Harwich.
And that total 5-year number.
Oh, thank you, sorry, yep, and the total 5-year number will now reflect $112,812,948.
Can't we round
But
it up?
again, I'd back out about 68 million of that, for what it's worth.
Well, it still has to get paid for.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, I'm backing it
Yep.
out, but.
Mary, I'll go over and get your cell number again. Your cell number, I'll get it.
Oh, okay.
So thank you, folks.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Appreciate
Any
it.
more questions? We're good?
Good work.
Thank you.
Next meeting, the 23rd?
Yes.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. the 23rd, and we're going to have, the agenda item is going to be Sean and facilities maintenance. And if we have to start earlier, just let us know.
And again, I would just ask, keep in mind the concept of site visits. We can certainly make arrangements on any and all of that if given advance notice.
I think we, with these locations, and, you know, we may think of going on a site visit, okay? After we hear.
Sure, absolutely.
What's happening. And there'll be one big binder presented to Karen. She's the
I think
binder.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna buy the binder, we're gonna buy the tabs, and we're gonna feed her
Ah.
3-hole punched paper, just like I have.
Yeah, that's all I need.
And anyone else that's looking for it.
Yes,
I just had a couple of questions. Ellen Powell does a great job organizing all the committee members. And she came up with a few things that we had to check when we were talking. And one of them, oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Caleb.
Mary Anderson. Ellen Powell has given us some questions that are good to make sure the different committees have, just to kind of keep everybody on the same page. You guys are good with most, but do you have a vice chair? And did Mark just become the clerk? Because the suggestion is that all committees should have those two positions.
that's an excellent question. We have addressed it. We are waiting to have a full complement, and we're losing, so we're playing catch-up ball. I want to thank Mark
Yeah.
for being the pro temp clerk, just to get us by, but there is somebody doing this through a recording of the meeting. So the full onus of writing it's very difficult to participate in a meeting and trying to keep notes.
I agree.
Unless you're being paid to take notes or given your time up for free to participate in the meeting. Once we get that, there'll be a full, once we get 7,
Yeah.
there'll be there'll be a person who might be the new chair, a vice chair, and a recording clerk. Right now, we are not in a position to do so.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do you want a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thanks, guys.